Delighted to be here today for episode 7 of the JB Open Exchange podcast. Today's guest is Irish legend Jim Rock, the only man to hold 4 professional Irish titles at 4 different weights. Jim, pleasure to have you on board. Thank you very much. What we always do at the start of the podcast is when we have a guest, obviously some people watching will know who Jim Rock is, and a lot will in the boxing world definitely will know who you are as a boxer and things like that. But if you just like to go back to the start and give us a little insight to where you came from and how you first got into boxing, etc., etc.
But basically, I'm from a family of 13 children, and at the age of 6, we were living in Drimnagh till I was maybe 10 years of age. But at the age of 6, my eldest brother, he was boxing for Drimnagh Boxing Club, and I was always probably a little bit rough around the edges in school and on the streets and that sort of thing. So I followed suit. I was the second one out of the family to follow suit down to Drimnagh Boxing Club. Joe Bean was the trainer down there, and I started boxing at the age of 6 down there, and had 2 fights, I think, in my first week.
Really?
Yeah, 2. I joined boxing on the Sunday, trained, sparred on the Sunday.
Was Pete Taylor the coach by any chance? Because Pete has a habit of doing that when he went to the gym.
No. Joe Bean was the trainer then. And he looked like Burgess Meredith, you know, the sort of trainer, or the Rocky Phillips. That's what he looked like. So, but I fought on the Wednesday, and then I fought again on the Sunday as well.
You're just hooked straight away.
Just straight in. Well, I loved fighting.
Yeah. And from that, as I said, hooked straight away. From that day, that was it. Boxing was.
I was always boxing because I liked the boxing. You know, I loved this sort of getting in there, having a little rumble in the ring, and just it suited me. I mean, I was never interested in football, or I think I'd done a bit of Gaelic football. Wasn't very good at it, but was very fit and was very sort of physically strong.
Yeah.
So I was fairly good at the Gaelic. You know what I mean? Because
of course, yeah.
But I mean, boxing was what I liked.
And 6-7 years of age starting boxing, by the time you became 11, and when you can start competing nationally and things like that. Was that the case back then? Or were you able to compete for a title like in competitions and all before you were 11? I know now it's 11, but
no. Well, yeah, I mean, 11 years of age, you had the Dublin leagues.
Yeah, was that when it started then as well? Yeah.
Then you had the Dublins, and then you had the All Irelands. I mean, by the time I started fighting in the leagues, I probably had 50 or 60 fights.
Yeah. Club shows and things like that.
Yeah. And it was never like ages. It was just like, stand beside him, you fight him.
Brilliant.
You know, and that was the way it was.
Yeah. And when you became, obviously when you went into leagues, were you successful as an amateur? Because I know of your professional career and the whole lot, but there's not a lot of records on the likes of BoxRec and things like that of professionals and from like 10, 15 years ago. Like you'd never find really even 10 amateurs that were 10 years ago. You barely see out on BoxRec, whereas now everything is recorded.
I won every year. I won leagues, Dublins, and All Irelands.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How many All Irelands would you have had?
I won 6 Irish titles as an amateur. So I think the last one. So I remember I won my first 3 All Irelands, and then the 4th year I was 71 kilos, and there was no weight division for me. You know, it was too heavy back then. So a fella from Avona fought at a year older than me and fought at 75 kilos, and he won the All Irelands. And a week later they had a tournament. So I went in and fought him. Although he was a way heavier and a year older, and I bet him. So I remember always in my head I was saying, I would have won the All Irelands this year as well.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and then I won another couple, and then I think I won the intermediates, which is just before you go to senior level.
Yeah, it's just below elite. Yeah. It's still an extremely good level, because usually what it is when kind of under 18s and the 19s, before they go elite, they'll always do the intermediate. So I always find the intermediate is a very high standard.
Yeah. So I won the intermediates then, and then I went into the seniors, and I was beaten twice in the seniors. You know, I was beaten once by Dennis Galvin, who was very accomplished amateur fighter, and then I was beaten by Brian McGee on the 9-7 scoreline. You know what? And I always said, although it's donkeys years ago, but I always say, he was from the Holy Trinity. You know, I would say that's why he got the decision. Yeah. Although my daughter fights for them now, so I can't say too much about him. But I always just said he was Holy Trinity. He just couldn't get decision against him.
But
But
it's a close one as well.
but like, it was a 9-7 score, and then when you look at what he went on to achieve,
Mm.
Makes it all the sweeter. You don't mind as much.
No, exactly. What was it? Because you went pro young, 22, 23, I think.
23. So I started going up to Belfast when I was 21, and I was going to turn pro. I was meant to have my first pro fight in the stadium in 1993. Steve Collins was fighting a fellow called Danny Morgan, and I'd been up at Barney Eastwood, and I'd been training up there, and he said, "Yeah, look, I'll put you on the bill." And like, I was 21. I was sort of, I wasn't ready to turn pro. Like, I was going up and down and training, and then I wouldn't go the next week. And so anyway, I didn't get on the bill. You know what I mean? And all my own fault. Because I had too much other stuff going on outside of boxing. You know what I mean? I just wasn't consistent. I was messing about. I was getting into trouble, and that was it. So I missed that opportunity, and then 2 years later, I moved to Belfast and met Mike Callahan, who was my trainer's father-in-law. He took myself and Eamon McGee on at the same time, and I had my first professional fight on Steve Collins' undercard in the Point Depot.
Did he manage you, did he?
Mike Callahan managed me and Eamon McGee.
He was the one who got you set up into the
he
program.
He got us set up into the program, and great man, an absolute just real. Like, he used to, years ago, there was a promoter called Jarvis Astaire. He used to do all the big shows in England and blah, blah, blah. And Mike was his matchmaker for all his fights. You know what I mean? So he's very experienced. Yeah. But he's just like a wealth of knowledge. Every day after training, I'd go to his house, and his wife would cook me dinner and that. And I'd sit and listen to him, and I'd listen to him for 2 or 3 hours every single day. Like, he had a great influence on me.
Yeah. Like, someone to look up to, and then you knew he had a wealth of knowledge in the game. He
has so much knowledge, and he talks so much sense. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I was a sort of I remember when I came up from Dublin up to Belfast, like, and I used to be always fighting on the streets, and a bit of a rough house, and thought I was a hard man, and so on and so forth. And I remember going up, jumping in the ring, and I was sparring with Ray Close. I used to spar with Crisanto Espana, who was WBA champion, and I'm getting him in there, and I'm thinking I'm a sort of a tough guy, and he's just played with me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going in there, they're just moving their head, boom.
They're showing you the level you had to actually get to then, like.
Oh, look at it. Like, it was
different. Like,
it was humbling to go in there and fight guys like this, So I remember I used to travel up nearly every day and then travel back down, and then I ended up moving up there, But I remember I was the last amateur club I was in was CIE Boxing Club, and I used to train there, and I used to spar the likes, let's say, Dan Curran, and he was a senior like heavyweight champion, and there was a few other good guys. But anyway, our spars were like, him and Harding,
up and down.
I go to Belfast, I'm sparring with Ray Close and Crisanto Espana, and like, they're schooling me, you know what I mean? And they're like playing with me. And I am every day, I'm going up and sparring, and I'm eager to get in there. And then I'm in there, and no matter how, if I thought I was getting better, they could just step it up a gear. But then I remember I was up there for about 6 week or 2 month period, day in, day out, probably taking a tanking off these lads. You know what I mean? Although they weren't deliberately killing me, but they were just so good. So, and then, like, in the back of your brain, am I getting any better? Like, because I'm getting battered here.
Of course, yeah.
Daily, So then, just this particular time, I was up there for about 6 weeks, sparring day in, day out. Couldn't see myself getting any better at all because I'm still getting battered.
Yeah.
But I come down and to CIE. I've been with it for 6 weeks. Come down, boom, jump in with the lads. With them. But these were sort of level pegging beforehand.
Yeah.
Next of all, I'm in front of them. They're throwing shots, boom, boom. I'm ducking on them. I'm seeing them coming up, boom. I'm saying.
You can see the dent. That's when you're seeing the difference.
In my head, I said, I'm getting better. You know what I mean? I think I'm not getting better up there. But they were just going up levels.
High. Yeah, they were getting better as you were getting better.
Yeah.
So there was always the gap.
They were always, But then when I went to Belfast the next day, I had a different mindset. I was saying, I'm after getting better. So I'm definitely going to stick it on him now today. You know, not
Yeah,
that
of course. Yeah.
you could.
No, but
But
you have to
psychologically, I
think
was
like
saying,
that, though.
I'm after getting, like, I'm definitely improving here. So I was able to hold my own a bit more than I was originally.
Was there many in the pro gym up there at the time?
There was.
Was it called the Cronk at the time?
It was never called the Cronk.
Didn't Tony?
That's Tony Dunlop.
Oh, sorry.
This is Barney Eastwood.
Yes, sorry.
This is Barney Eastwood's gym.
Yes.
So Ray Close at the time, when I was sparring up there, I was one of his sparring partners when he was fighting. He's fighting Eubank. This is before Collins fought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I sparred in him. I sparred in Santo España, Victor Cordoba.
Yeah.
You know, top class fellas.
Yeah, world level.
Oh, like world champions.
And how early in your career was this? Was this at the beginning?
This is when I was still amateur.
Literally day.
This is
day
when I was
one?
amateur.
Oh, really? When you were
This
amateur?
is this is between 1993 and 95 when I was hemming and hawing about going and didn't sort of commit myself too well. You know what I mean? Then when I turned pro, obviously there was Santo España was there, Ray Close was there, Amy McGee was there, Cordoba was there, and there was others. They were just a great gym. You know, it's just a fabulous setup to be in.
Serious setup.
You know, and like for me, so again, I was a wild child sort of in Dublin. You know, when I was getting into bits of bother and, you know, would have been in prison a few times. Like I wasn't getting a break in Dublin. Like no matter where I was getting stopped, I was getting hassled. I was getting, you know, and it didn't help that I was fucking lippy with them as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So when I moved to Belfast, no one knew me. So I got a clean break, a clean slate.
Oh, clean slate,
you know.
Yeah.
So I stayed up there, training up there. Then I just came down, let's say at the weekends, just to work in my garage. But I just totally clean slate. You know what I mean? And again, like when I turned pro in 95, so I was from, let's say, Castleknock, Manchester area, city centre. Then in 1997, I took over my garage. So I went out that side of the city, whereas like I didn't get any hassle up there because I wasn't sort of known out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Belfast gave me just a clean slate just to start again.
And did you spend your whole career in Belfast
Spent my whole
training there?
Yeah, I think for a little period of time, I went over to Brendan Ingles' gym. I signed with Frank Warren after me 5th fight. A silly thing, but I mean, myself and Amy McGee turned pro at the same time. And Mike was always, you and Amy McGee, you know, he said, everything you do, you're going to be on the same bills. He's not on the bill, you're not on the bill, so on and so forth. And that was the way it was sort of. And then one day, Wayne McCullough was fighting in Dublin and they wanted me to fight in the bill. And I said, Mike, they want me to fight in. No, they're not letting McGee on it, so you're not on it. He says, anyway, that's the 30th of August. You're fighting on the 1st of September in the Ulster Hall. Right, no bother. Yeah. So you just accepted that. That's the way it was. Yeah. But then Amy McGee got a chance to fight in America. And I mean, like, I wasn't going.
Aye.
So when they went to America, funny enough, last guest, Roddy Collins, I talked to Roddy, and Roddy says to me, it was Roddy Collins actually says to me, he said, listen, Frank Warren, he says, is very interested in you. He says, there's the number. He says, go on. So he was the one.
Very good.
He said it to me. So I flew over to, while they were away in America, I flew over to Frank Warren, done a deal with Frank Warren, boom, came home. And then he said to me, well, listen, I want you to train in Sheffield. He says, you know what I mean? I said, well, look, I'm going to train in Belfast. I said, because that's where I'm training, but I'll go over to Sheffield as well. I said, John Breen is still going to be my trainer. You know what I mean? So I used to just train in Belfast, and then I go over to Sheffield for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I train there, you know, and then I'd still give me trainer in Belfast me 10%.
Of course, yeah.
And I gave Brendan Ingle 10% as well of my money, because both of them were my trainers.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I mean, John Breen was my real trainer. But it was great.
And when Frank signed you, you're 5. I know you hadn't won any Irish titles at that stage. You were only beginning.
I'd only had I'd only 5 fights, and I signed up with Warren. So my first fight was Ryan Rhodes was fighting for the British title, and I got on that card. And I fought a fella 11-2, bet him. And then my next fight brought down to London, and Brendan Ingle says, myself and a fella called Jawed Khalik, real good fighter, welterweight. And we're going down, he says, he says, he said, you two are coming down here to get beaten. I said, who is? He says, no, yous are being brought down here to be beaten. He says, that fella you're fighting, he says he's Commonwealth champion or something like that. He's making his pro debut, Jim. I said, yeah, so I said, like, I'm 6-0. He said, no, he says, they're bringing you down here to get beaten. Really? I won't be beaten. So I banjoed you, man. You know what I mean? I stopped him in the third round, and then the next fight, I had about 10 weeks notice, and they just rang me up one day and says, hey, Jim, will you fight Ainsley Bingham? I said, who's Ainsley Bingham? They said, he's a British champion. He's just gone 12 rounds with Winky Wright, who's the world champion for the last 7 years. He says, will you fight him? He says, the fellas that are pulling out, he says, space there for you to fight me. I said, yeah, all right then. You know what I mean?
Fighter always says, yeah.
Yeah. So I went over and fought him. He stitched me up, you know what I mean? I mean, I won 5 of the first 6 rounds. Eddie Bingham was knackered. He used to come out rounds 4, 5, and 6. He'd come out for 30 seconds. Now, they say he's the biggest one-punch knockout artist in British history and all that, they were saying. So he just used to come out, blah, blah, loads of digs, and I just took up and cover up. And then for the next 2.5 minutes, I'd beat him because he hadn't got it in the tank. Yeah. So, 28 round fight, because I wouldn't fight for the British title, because I was. They said, we'll get you a British license. I said, give me a British license. I said, I'm Irish. Yeah. I'm
proud to be Irish.
I said, very proud. I said, there's loads of men have died, but to keep Ireland, I says, no way I'm giving her up for free. Yeah. So he came out in the 7th round, hit me a good shot, then threw loads of digs. I'm ducking under them and diving, and 2 punches hit me out of 14. Referee just stops fight.
Yeah, screwed.
And they all just said to me after it, they said, look, he is at the going, he's reigning British champion, intercontinental champion, just gone 12 rounds with the world champion who's there for 7 years. They said, like, there's no way they're going to have a 7-fight Paddy novice beating him. So just
doesn't make it feel any better, does it though?
No, it doesn't. No. And I mean, and when I get out of the ring, as I'm getting out of the ring, Chris Eubank gets in the ring after me. So he's the next fight to me. And he's fighting Carl Thompson. And he gets battered. Yeah. Now, I took a couple of digs. He is battered, and they wouldn't stop his fight, you know what I mean? And then straight after him, Nassim gets in the ring. Like a huge big card, you know what I mean? Like, you can't go over there and think you're going to get, you know,
you got to beat him.
A slice of the pie, you know what I mean?
And after that fight, did Frank keep you, or did they
let
you go?
That was it. You know, when you get beaten by Frank, that's it.
That's your winner says on job, isn't it, with him?
Okay. And people say, oh, listen, he's this or he's that. I said, no. He's a businessman. Yeah. This is what promoters do. I mean, they want winners. They don't want losers. And you lost. Yeah. No matter whether they got stitched up or not. I mean, he obviously had money and time invested into Ainsley Bingham.
Exactly.
Brought him to the World Championship and had him as British champion. So, I mean, he still wants him to top his bills to get his pound of flesh off.
Exactly.
Of
course, yeah. And after that, what happened then? Did you sign?
No, after that I came back to Dublin, and so that was in April 98. And then next of all, there was a fella called Sil McLean. He was promoting a show in the National Basketball Arena. So he says, will you fight in that bill? Blah, blah. Yeah, okay, yeah. 6 rounds, light middleweight. Yeah, no bother. So I'm training away for that fight. And Michael Crew is fighting for a WAA welterweight championship of the world against Scott Dixon. Pascal Collins is fighting Michael Monaghan for the WAA Intercontinental title. So I'm fighting at light middleweight, 6 round or whatever. 10 rounds before the fight. 10 days before the fight. Get a phone call. Jim, Pascal Collins is out of getting cut. He's out of getting cut sparring Steve Dawson.
I know Steve.
Yeah, I know Steve well. Yeah. Steve was he's my second last amateur fight. You
The
know,
toughest trainer I ever trained under in my life.
good man, good fella. You know what I mean? So so Steve cuts him. So next of all, they said, "Will you want to fight for the Intercontinental title?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "But," he said, "you're meant to fight 6 rounds. Now you're fighting 12. You've never done any more than you've only went into the 7th against Bingham. That's all, you know." I said, "That doesn't matter. I'll be fit enough." He said, "But like you're fighting at light middleweight." He says, "This is a super middleweight." He says, "So you have 10 days. You're gonna do an extra 6 rounds, and you're gonna be fighting two weights." That's grand.
Boxer.
Just I'll fight.
Yeah. No mention of how much either. It's always just yes.
The money is the exact same. Yeah. I didn't get any extra money.
But that's the boxer never asked that question. It's always just when.
I got the same amount of money that I was getting for fighting the 6th round. I didn't care because I was getting a chance to fight for a belt.
100%.
So I went, fought, man. I knew your man anyway because I'd sparred him in Sheffield. He's Brendan Ingles' fighter. So I said, I knew he was tricky, and I knew only because I had trained in Brendan Ingles' gym for them few fights, I knew how they fought.
Yeah.
Switch hitting, messing about, like they'd annoy the shit out of you.
Yeah. Low hands and all that kind of
everything. So I knew all that. So I knew going in, he's going to do this. So it didn't bother me. I knew how to handle it. Easily beat him, and that was grand. That was my first title. You know what I mean? It's my 9th professional fight. I'm fighting 12 rounds.
Yeah.
You don't see that.
No, you don't.
And
you'd only been beaten by a fella who had gone to this and the world champion. So, and you were beaten wrongly.
Yeah.
So
look, I was delighted. You know what I mean? So got my first title. That was in the September. Then in the January, Brian Peters puts on a show in Vicar Street. The only time he's ever boxing in Vicar Street. So I'm topping the bill there against Jimmy Vincent.
Had Brian signed you at this stage?
No, but I think he signed me straight after this. You know what I mean? So I've topped the bill there, 10 rounds against Jimmy Vincent. Now Jimmy Vincent became WBU world champion because Eamon McGee took the title off him.
Right.
So I done the 10 rounds against Jimmy Vincent in the January. Then in the February, I went over to Middlesbrough and I fought for the WBF light middleweight title. And then 2 weeks later, I fought in the stadium underneath Shane Erie and I fought for the Irish super middleweight title.
So you went from super middleweight to light middleweight, back up to super middleweight.
Back up to super middle again, just to get the belt. Because there was a problem with the light middleweight title was held by someone, I forget his name, Gordon Bean or something. I think his name was. He was fighting out of America. And the middleweight title, the fella I fought couldn't make the weight or something like that. So I fought for the super middleweight title, and I fought against a fella called Michael Alexander. Now Michael Alexander
he's the referee.
I always see him
for the BBOC.
The BBC, yeah. So he does the likes of Anthony Joshua and all that.
He does all them, yeah.
So I went in, fight him, boom. Went in, first round, boom, down he goes, up he gets, up, down. So anyway, he went down 3 times in the first round, fight was stopped. I was raging. I was absolutely I wanted to fight.
Were you, at this stage, would you have been getting paid or would it be ticket based?
I know, I always got paid.
Right.
But I always sold tickets. You know what I mean? But my very first fight, which was when Collins fought Cornelius Carr in the Point Depot. And we only got on the bill on me and Amy McGee got on the bill on the Tuesday. The fight was on the Saturday.
Right. And
I was still able to sell me purse and tickets.
Really, yeah?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So from a start, they knew I was a ticket seller. And then as the fights went on, I just was selling, let's say, for instance, you and your mate came to see me fight. Well, the next time I fight, you and your mate and 2 of their mates and their friends would go.
Yeah.
And that's the way it built. Everyone, the same ones came to see me fight all the time because they knew when I fought that, it was always value for money. It was always a good fight. You're always standing toe to toe and giving a good account for yourself. Entertainment,
100%, yeah.
And then there was always when I turned pro, there was always a sort of a backstory with the papers. They always like to know a bit about your past, and they always had done it like bad boy turned good guy, and he's had to turn his life around. He was on the wrong side of the tracks, and now he's doing well, and get behind him.
Did you find that back then that you would have had a good bit of media support?
Oh, I did, yeah. Because it was always, you were always like, because you had a little story and they knew about it. Like, it was always like, whereas loads of the other fighters was always, oh well, I've done this and that. There was no backstory to them. Whereas with me, I always liked the backstory. Like, there was stories about, like, I'd been shot a few years earlier. I'd been shot in the 2 legs. I'd been stabbed. I've been in prison several times.
It's a big story for the newspaper because they probably were reporting on the stories when it was happening.
What I mean. So I mean, and they always like a sort of the underdog. The fella who was expected to, let's say, end up in prison for life or something like that, and then they say he's not doing well. He's had to turn his life around. We'll get behind him a bit because and it's nice, and it's
definitely Like, it shows people, and even people watching that. We've had a few episodes over the weeks where you've had people who have been on a wrong path and they've turned it right around, and now their life is actually going really well for them. Yeah, it does show, and like even hearing that there, where you'd gone through the mill like that outside of boxing and then turned around, and then you got the media and the country backing and things like that, which went on. Your career ended up being a really successful career. Yeah,
and I mean, like I remember when I'd be fighting, let's say, in the stadium, and let's say the tickets come out on sale, and I'd say, right, listen, I'll take let's say I'd take 100 ring sides. So I'd have, where you have 3 different sides of the. So I'd have, let's say, there was a solicitor's firm that sponsored me for a time, and to be about 30 of them had come, solicitors and barristers, and I'd sit all them there. And then I'd have loads of heads from Dublin, let's say, who would be considered, let's say,
you wouldn't be the most friendly.
No, they're very friendly. But they'd be considered, let's say, not criminals, but criminals. Yeah, they were criminals. So I'd have them sitting all over there together, and then I'd have, sometimes there was a pal of mine was a cop, and there was other business, and all them sitting there. But it was a bit of a logistical nightmare because I didn't want them sitting beside them, and I didn't want them sitting beside them. Although they didn't care, because I remember one of the cops used to come to me fights all the time. He said, take the sergeant. And he was a lovely fella, and he used to box himself. He used to box me as an amateur. And I said, he said, it doesn't matter to him. He says, like, we get on grand. Like, he says, we have our job to do, and they have their job to do. He says, but, if we arrest them, we arrest them. But I mean, like, he said, we've no bother here. This is a boxing show. He says, we nod, we say hello to each other. He said, it's not like we would think at of it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I didn't want them sitting next to each other as such. You know what I mean? Just in case something.
But I have the same when I'm doing the tickets for the shows. I'm the same. Like, I kind of have to go, well, he's fighting him, or he fought him, so I don't really want to put their fans together in case a row breaks. So you're kind of splicing them around the place.
Slightly different, but when you're talking about a cop who has put one of them in prison for 10 years before.
Yeah, well, that's a different.
It's slightly different. That fella's just a bit of rivalry between them. But like I said, there was never any hassle with them, and they all mixed together after the fight. They'd come to the party and they'd all sit and chat, but it was never a bother with them, like, because it was at a boxing show, and they were there for the boxing. They weren't there for any differences was left outside.
Very good. Yeah. So at this stage in your career, you're 10 or 11 fights in after winning three titles.
3 titles, yeah.
What made you? Was it weight corner fights that was making you step up and down the weights? Were you taking, or was it just you couldn't get opponents at weights because of the fact that you won the 4 Irish titles at 4 weights?
When I fought Ensley Bingham, and then I went and was fighting for Brian Peters after that, and I remember one time I was chatting to him, and we were talking about money that I was getting for the fight, and I said, look, I'm not getting enough. You're not paying me enough, I said, for this fight. He said, you know why? He says, your opponents are getting more than you. I said, what do you mean they get? No, they're the losing side. They're in the blue corner. I said, he said, no, Jim. He says, you fought Izzy Bingham. He says, and you gave it to him. He says, they won't fight you. They will not fight you. He says, I have to pay them nearly double the money that I'd have them to fight someone else. He says, because they don't want to fight you. He says, because they just know that they're in for a rough night. wherever about them going out and get beaten, but they know they're going to be getting bet up.
Mm.
And they know that they're going to be getting, like, you're known as being tough, you're known as being very fit, and you just give it to them all night, he says,
Yeah.
So, and I know there a couple of years ago, there's a fella called O.J. Abrahams. Do you ever hear of O.J. Abrahams?
No.
So he's from Watford in England, and he had 100 professional fights.
Oh,
Fought everyone. So a couple of years ago, he was on there, and something come up online, you know what I mean? And I said, blah, blah. And he just said, he put a post up, and he says, I've been in the ring with all the, he says, was Nigel Benn's sparring partner. I think he said he fought Eubank, he sparred Kazaki, he fought all
that middleweight, super middleweight generation,
light middleweight and all that.
Mm.
He said, you were offered to me loads of times. He said, I wouldn't fight you. He says, and I fought everyone. He says, I wouldn't fight you. He says, you were just too tough. He says, I didn't mind getting beaten. He says, but he said, you'd have just battered me.
A dog fight, someone that's going really going.
He says, he'd be in a dog fight with you. He says, I just said no, I'm fighting him.
That's good to hear that as well, though, isn't it? Like, that really give you a big boost on, especially with the.
I know, I was finished fighting at this time.
Like,
I was finished fighting at this time. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something else though, because that era was probably the best middleweight, super light middleweight era of all time, nearly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like, I remember one time we went to about 1999 or 2000. So Brian Peters was obviously just getting into promoting and that sort of thing, and he'd contacts, but not, let's say, as much as he has now, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
But he says to me one day, he offered me loads of fights, and he offered me to fight Jermaine Taylor.
Right.
Yeah, no bother. Where's it on?
Fought Frock, didn't he?
Yeah.
Carfrock, yeah. Carfrock stopped. He was beating Frock, wasn't he? And Frock stopped him in the last round. Yeah.
So he offered me, when Jermaine Taylor was coming up, and I said, yeah, no bother, I'll fight him. Of course, it fell through. Another fella who was just out of prison for rape for about 21 years, Tony Ayala. When he got out of prison, like, he was about 41. Jim Lee, go out and fight him? Yeah, I'll fight him. But of course, never came true. You know what I mean? But anyway, one day he rings me and he says to me, listen, Felix Trinidad is fighting in Miami. He says, and he's fighting against the European champion. And at the time, I was in the top 15 in Europe. You know what I mean? Because I was Irish champion. When you're Irish champion, I don't know if it's done then, but you can win the top 15. So he says, he's fighting Trinidad. He said he's Mamadou Tiam was his name. He says if he beats Felix Trinidad, he said, which is unlikely. He says, but he has a puncher's chance. He said if he could knock out Trinidad. He says he could, but if it goes past 2 or 3 rounds, he did.
Yeah.
He'd be beaten. But he says, but if he beats him, Felix Trinidad had 2 world titles or something.
Of course, yeah.
He says he'll be due a voluntary.
Right, he'll pick last on the list.
He says, and you'll get. So I went over to Miami. You know what I mean? And but of course he got beaten. It would have been great to
definitely
fight for the likes of belts like that. But I mean, like you were always like on the cusp or something. Like you could get in and fight one of them just on a, it's like a wild card. It's like you're getting a chance, and you're getting a chance as though they're going to say, listen, you're going to get battered, but listen, we'll give you a chance here.
Did you ever spar with the likes of Collins and Ben or any of them?
I sparred Collins. I didn't spar Ben, and I sparred loads of, like, I remember one time I was in America and I was training in the wildcard, and I got picked up by a fella called I forget his name. Anyway, so he says, myself and Colin O'Grady went over. I was topping the bill in Boston, and so we went. O'Grady was meant to be on the bill as well, but his fight fell through. So we went to the wild card to train for 4 weeks or something like that. So we get picked up, and they said, right, O'Grady, you're going to be sparring such and such a fella. And Rock, he says, not only are you sparring against the hardest trainer in the gym, he said he's also the hardest puncher in the gym. He said, and he's going to try and knock you out. He says, Oscar De La Hoya won't fight him, he says. Oh, all right, then. Fair enough. Right. So I just I'll have this fella now tomorrow. Said he's going to try and bleed kill me,
Hmm.
you know. But I went out. Of course, I'm like middleweight. I'm towering over him. Taller than him, twice the size of him.
Confidence is growing.
You know what I mean? I'm looking at him like that. I said, "Fuck, there's no way he'll be doing this to me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So came out for the fourth round. So I knew what he's going to do and big puncher. So I just smothered his work. Grappled him and hauled him around the ring, and like I
Roughed
just
them up completely.
roughed him up completely. But I remember one time, like we were in close and we were working in close, and I was watching him. You know the way you're watching your opponent, and you're watching and he had his hands here, and he just went, just from literally 2 inches, caught me there, and I remember just saying, right, the eye's cut. I was convinced my eye was cut. I just felt it, like whatever way his knuckle came through the yoke, and
Yeah.
I just had the feeling it was cut. Yeah, and I said, but anyway, it wasn't cut. It was only one of them lumps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was when I get out of the ring, Freddie Roche says to me, he says, "You're a very clever fighter." He says, "You're a very clever fighter." He says, "You just nullified everything he done there." You know what I mean? It wasn't pretty or anything like that.
But you stopped him from doing.
He couldn't do it. So the next day, when the sparring, he didn't come out the same as he came out.
He
didn't come out
changed to try to adapt to you.
He knew that there's no way you're going to out-rough me.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So that was that. But I mean, that was just the way I fought. You know what I mean? Like I was, you know, I never claimed to be the sort of a great boxer or anything like that, but I was very fit. I was extremely strong, especially at light middleweight. Like
that's the question. What weight? Because obviously you won the 4 belts, but what was the weight that was your weight? There's always one that was you felt your best at, you felt your strongest at.
I mean, out of my 34 professional fights, I think about 22 of them were at light middleweight.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that was me weight. I mean, like I didn't think I was any stronger at middle, super middle, but I remember one time I was fighting for the Irish super middleweight title. I was defending the title that I'd won, and Steve Collins was commentating on it, and the fella I was fighting, he went the distance with Ryan Rhodes twice, and Rhodes couldn't stop him around that. Next one, boom, out. Third round, boom, down he goes, cracker of a right hand, and then the 7th round, boom, left hook to the body, down. He didn't get up for the count, and Collins was saying, Steve was saying, this is the way he should be at because he's so strong, but it wasn't. I just hit him the punch. Like I always say, like you can hit someone the same dig 2,000 times, but one time you're going to hit them, and you're going to hit them just in that right place,
in the spot, yeah,
and they're going to go down. It's a bit of a fluky job, you know what I mean?
Or precision, or precision.
Yeah, but I mean, like you can't say I'm going to just land exactly on him because he'll move that way, and you might hit him with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, like I don't think I was any stronger at middle or super middle or light heavyweight. You know what I mean? I think I was, because always when I would weigh in for light middleweight, I'd weigh in on the Friday, and I'd weigh in at say 10 stone 14 or something like that. And then when I get in the ring on the Friday, which is 36 hours later, I'd be about 12 stone 4.
12.5 stone. Yeah, there.
You know what I mean? So I'd always put on a stone of 4 or 5 pounds, and you could see that stone on me. Like you know,
fill out completely.
Yeah, like I was talking to one of my opponents, and years after, and they said, like, Jim, we couldn't believe, like, we were at the weigh-in and we saw you and you were gaunt, he says, and you would wane, he said, and you looked decimated, he says, you know what to make it away. He says, then we got in the ring, he says, and you took off you. He said, like I was looking at someone else, he said, the muscles were bulging out, he says, you know.
That happened to me. We went over to fight Anthony Fowler.
Yeah.
And you know Tommy McCormick, the cut man.
Oh, Tommy, yeah.
Yeah, so we went over and weighed in, and everyone was saying how big Fowler was, and he was huge, and that's the talk coming up to it, you know, and he was so strong. And I was like, my head's made of concrete. No one will hurt me. He hit me in the head. So we stood beside him on the scales, and width-wise, we were the same size. I was a little bit taller, and I was looking, going, he's not that big, Tommy. Tommy goes, no, he's not. He said, I thought he would be a lot bigger now. Grand. Got to the ring the next night. Never forget, I got into the ring. Fowler comes to the ring, asked me, look across the ring, and I went, Tommy's got to put him on the size, and Tommy looks and Tommy goes, I think that's his brother, bud. he literally went from that width to that width He was huge.
Some
I
fighters
was
had.
shocked by it was. So it was the first time ever when I looked across the ring at someone after seeing one of weighing scales. I went, whoa.
I used to see loads of fighters and they'd weigh in, and then between weigh in and fight night, they'd put on 5, 6, 7 pounds.
Mm.
I put on 3 times more weight than them,
Yeah.
and you could see it on me.
Yeah. Well, when I weighed in for the welterweight Celtic title at 66, which was welter, I left the house the next day at 161. So I put on 15 pound.
Yeah.
Going to that would have been the 36
And I
hours
presume
later.
it's just fluids.
Yeah, it was fluids, and obviously because the last couple of days you're not eating big heavy meals, so I would have had big pasta meals earlier on the day before and things just for carbs and things. But I remember blowing up like huge.
See, like I found if I ate too much after me weigh in, that my stomach wouldn't be able for it because you're cutting down weight for so long, and then you're gorging yourself. Like it shocks your system,
Yeah.
and then you be on the toilet all the next day or something. So I used to just drink loads of fluids, and that's what it is. Your body stores it because you're after starving your body. So the body
100%, yeah.
obviously, like when it gets, it says, "Oh, let's keep this." It doesn't pass through you.
Yeah.
It just stores that. And it stores
the
all these
muscles and all
fluids,
just take it.
and then so obviously, just some fighters, like it's genetics of the body.
Yeah,
But some
100%.
people absorb fluids better than others. I could absorb them. You know what I mean? And then I always felt really strong, and physically, I'd be throwing these fellas around the ring. Like I may not have been a better boxer than them, but I certainly was.
I think the pro game, I think you obviously have to be able to box. Like that's obviously key. But I always say a good solid pro will be the top amateur. I just feel a lot of amateurs don't adapt over the distance.
Yeah,
obviously 3 rounds they're done.
3 rounds, the amateurs going to beat the pro.
Even 5 they'll win the fight. But I think once you get into that 8 round, 10 round, 12 round, I think a good pro will be a lot of top amateurs do adapt to the pros and become very good pros. But I see a lot of top amateurs make average pros because they don't adapt to the distance and they don't adapt to the actual pro game. Whereas a lad like yourself, that you get in, you rough a lad up, you start ruffling an amateur up early rounds. When it comes to 7, 8, they don't want to be there. I just feel that.
I used to come down when I was pro, when I was training hard and all that. And I remember one time I came down to Drimna Boxing Club one Sunday morning, and they were all sparring there. And I actually went over to spar Pascal Collins. That's who was sparring over there. I'd done about 3 rounds with Pascal, and of course it never went. We only sparred once or twice, but it's always a grudge. Do you know what I mean? And although there shouldn't be, but at the time when you're fighting, you just hate anyone that's in competition with you.
Similar weights, yeah. There's always a divide.
Someone says something and it's taken out of context. Like I remember when I fought in Vicar Street that time, Steve Collins was doing the commentary because it was live on TV3. Is it TV3?
It was, back in the day. It's Virgin now, isn't it?
Virgin now. It's TV3. So Steve was on it and he was commentating. And at the end of it, he said, look, I look good win for Jim Rock. You know what I mean? He said, but, is he ready for the step up now? He said, is he ready to fight Pascal Collins? And I took it very personally.
Yeah.
I took that so cheek of him. And I just, like, from then on, I wanted to kill Pascal. You know what I mean? And we were meant to fight once. And we were meant to fight for I think it was the Irish middleweight title in the stadium. And the fight was organised. And then Pascal went and fought in America, a 4-rounder. And he gets beaten. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I wondered why. But anyway, so then I went to the press conference, or the announcement of the fight, which was in Shelbourne Park at the time. And I remember distinctly, I wore a lemon, nice fleece, you know what I mean? And then when I was being interviewed, and I just said to them, I said, I wore this yellow jumper down here. I said, I was going to give it to Pascal Collins because he's yellow. He wouldn't fight me. And I mean, and that was wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
like,
things
but
get said
at the time, because Steve had said that, well, then that sort of set me on a roller coaster. And he's competition now. I'll kill him. And I mean, like, we used to train in the Olympus gym, which was a gym in Capel Street, right? Upstairs, they had all the boxers used to train there. And I remember one time I was up there, and it was just after this thing, and he was training there, and I was training. We wouldn't look at each other. But I was sort of eating me up. I was saying, if he says that to me, I was just going to give him a dig outside. And that's just the way, like, I took everything so personally when I was boxing. And now, when I look back and I say to myself, like, what Steve done was marvellous, because he sent his gym rock ready. Obviously, he was geeing his brother up a bit much, but all he was doing was trying to set up an appetite for the fight, for the fans. Yeah. But of course, at that time, I'm 24 or 25 or 26. I didn't see that. I just had to cheat him saying that I'd kill them, you know, because at the time, you see, as we said earlier on, you think you're...
As a boxer, you just... you want to fight everybody, and you want to fight anybody.
But like, that's the way, because I remember I was talking to Pascal about it there a few years ago, and because there was some other interview was coming up, and I said to him, I says, I was going to bring it up about me and you. We were meant to fight, and blah, blah. Yeah, no bother, because you know what I mean. So I don't mind. Like Pascal Collins he'd have fought me any day. Yeah, like I mean, there's no fear in him, because he had some good fights and all that. But I mean, like, I always just said, why did he not fight me? Why did he go and fight Handbag in America over 4 rounds, and he got beaten by him when he could have fought for the Irish title?
Yeah,
you know. But however, like, it's just one of them things, you know.
The biggest night in your life. Odyssey Arena, Belfast. Obviously, it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, but was it in your eye at the time? Was it like you'd got there?
So, like, I think I was about 20. I don't know what my record was at that time. I think I only had 1 defeat, or maybe 2 defeats. I think it was 20-2 or 22-2 or something like that. But what happened was, I was up in Belfast, and a fella that was in our gym, he was a friend of my trainers, a fellow called Mickey Hughes. One of his sons used to promote shows in Belfast there, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, young Michael Hughes. But he's organising some of the security in Belfast for Frank Warren and that. I arrive to Belfast, and I'm either in a Rolls Royce or a Bentley. I'm in one of the others. I'm in one of them anyway. You know, I'm in this gorgeous car. You know what I mean? And next of all, Mickey, he says, I'm doing picking up Frank from the airport now. Yeah, fair enough. So already, like, I had fought for him before, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So he says, do you want to pick Frank up from the Hotel de Europa? He says, and bring him to the fights, wherever the fights were on. Probably the Ulster Hall or something like that, you know what I mean? And I said, not really, you know. He said, like, you should ask me. He's thinking about running a show here in Belfast, but he doesn't have... Tell him you'll fight. Tackle out or something. All right. Yeah, well, I'll pick him up. Tell him I'll pick him up at 7:30. So I went over to Europa. Yep, Frank Warren. Yep, down he comes. He comes out. It's just some car. I said, yeah. He says, where'd you get this? I said, I bought it the other day. You know, at the time I was driving all them sort of flash cars.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So what are you doing? I said, I'm still trying away, I says. He says, yeah, I'm coming up. I said, no, really. I says, you're thinking about running the show here in Belfast? I says, what about your man Takaloo? I says, why'd you put me in him on? Leave it with me.
Jesus.
That was on the Saturday. On the Monday, phone calls, boom, fight made. So,
right place, right time.
Just, that's how a lot of things happen in boxing.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and it's all a look. You know what I mean?
100%, yeah.
It's all luck, and it's getting yourself out there. And, you know, now, if I had been in a Ford Focus or something like that, first of all, I wouldn't have been picking up Frank Warren. And he wouldn't have looked at me the same way. You know what I mean? Because he had met me, obviously, when I was in England. And when I was in Sheffield, sometimes I'd go down to London, buy a few cars, and I'd send them back on the boat to Dublin. And then when I go back, then they'd be in my garage for me, and I'd get them. And I remember Frank saying, what are you doing with the cars, Jim? Where are you? I said, I have a garage in Dublin. And he loved the fact that you weren't just a boxer, that you had something going on outside boxing. Yeah. You know what I mean? So then when he saw the roller, you know, and he just, I said, I'm all right. And he loved that. He loved the fact that and I tell you another thing about him. When I used to go to the fights that I was fighting on under Frank and all that, and after the fights I'd come out, I have the suit on me. And Roddy Collins, he'd swear to this now. I used to get me suits in Louis Copeland's, same as Roddy.
Yeah.
So my dad got them in Louis Copeland's and all that. So that's why I said, right, so you're always getting a suit, Louis Copeland's. You go to one of these other shops and maybe your suit was costing you 500 quid. Into Louis Copeland's, $1,000, 1,500, tailor made to you. Just looked the business on you. You know what I mean? I think you'd be in great shape because you're training away. The suit looks great on you and all that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like Frank always, he'd come by me at the ringside and all this. Nice suit. And this was well before this happened.
Yeah.
Well before the thing. He used to always comment on my suits and all. My suit looks well, sharp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there are things that people. So then, not only is that, then he sees you with the nice cars and all that. So he probably said, I'll give this fella a chance here.
Exactly, yeah.
And set up the fight. And obviously it didn't go well for me. No, like I said, I was ahead on the judges' scorecards. I'd never been put down as a professional. I was put down once or twice as an amateur. But you know, I was sort of renowned for me sort of chin and me gutsiness and that. And I had said, come up to fight. I said, well, he won't be putting me down. You know? So I fought him. First 8 rounds. No bother. I don't know. I think I won either 6 or 7 of the rounds. Well ahead on the scorecards, the judges' scorecards. I went back after the 8th round and my trainer says to me, how are you feeling? I said, Grant. He said, right, last 4 rounds, championship rounds here. He says, start putting it to him. Start sticking it to him. Right, no bother. You know what I mean? Because I had loads in the tank.
Yeah.
So I remember I went out, 9th round, boom, jab. I think it was the 4th jab I threw. Boom. Boom. Overhand right.
Good luck.
Time to perfection. Boom. Down. I just remember going down. I got up. You know what I mean? No, I got up after. I got up straight away. My eyes were glassy and all. So I see it in the video and all that. And the referee stopped the fight. You know what I mean? I was raging. You know what I mean? Now I got. Some people say, like, but you got like a knockout of the year on Sky for 2003. I said, yeah, it's no consolation. I says,
it's not
I didn't get. It's not what I wanted. I wanted the belt. You know what I mean? I didn't give a shit about the money or anything like that. You know what I mean?
I think when you're boxing, obviously I wouldn't have earned much money in boxing, but I think there's a lot of boxers, especially in Ireland, that it's more they just want the belt. The money they don't look at the money. Even when I'm matching fights now, a lot of the time people agree to fights before you even mention the money to them.
Right, okay.
And like a lot.
Well, it wasn't like that when I was boxing.
No, a lot do. Like a lot now, I'd say like, do you want to fight him? Would you be interested in fighting him? And they'd say, yeah. And what it for? And I might say a Celtic title or an Irish title or whatever. And they'd say, yeah, I'll definitely take that fight, 100%. I said, right, I'll go and see can I get a sorted. And then I go to the other team and I have to talk money and all to them.
Right, yeah.
And I get it agreed. And I'll go back and say, that fight's done, it's agreed, you're doing it on such a date. And I could tell you out of 10 fighters, 9 never ask, how much am I getting? The conversation always comes then after that.
It always comes with it because, like, I mean, obviously, if they're fighting 6 rounds and I get an X amount off you, then they're fighting 8 rounds, I get an X amount off you. So they say, well, I'm fighting 10 rounds here now, I'm fighting for the title. I presume I'm going to get 2 or 3 times the amount I'm getting.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, and they've worked with you before, so they're saying, well, listen, Jay's all right. He said to pay me from the other ones. There's no messing with him. You know what I mean? He look after me. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they know
that's probably why it is, because everyone always gets paid. You get paid on the night and they're gone. There's never an issue with anyone like that. We've never ever had to kind of leave anyone or say we'll pay you next week or, you know, everyone gets it on the day and they're gone. Like, you know what I mean?
That's it. But I mean, like I'd have fought for nothing.
Well, that's why I was. I accepted all my fights, even against all the ones I shouldn't have took. I was one that accepted all them, never asked them much. Yeah. Just accept, I didn't even know who they were. Like, I got a phone call because I was a footballer. Yeah. And then I just come into boxing. I didn't know the British elite amateur teams or anything like that. And I was being asked to fight the first one. Like, I was like, well, whoever he is, Tommy just said to me, do you want to fight this lad? And I was like, yeah, whatever. Because I had told Tommy after being 4 and I was like, Tommy, I'm fed up of selling tickets to beat up these lads. Like I said, I just don't understand it. Because I was coming from football. I didn't understand. I hadn't got an amateur career. I didn't believe you had. I didn't understand the whole building process or anything. I was like, fed up fucking selling tickets to come in and fight these lads with shit records And Tommy said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to fight real people that want to fight. And he said, all right, look, I'll leave it with me. Then he came back to me and said, do you want to fight Felix Cash? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I said, who is he? He goes, he was on Team GB. And I went, sound.
Sounds like a traveller from
like,
Bray.
Yeah, I was like, sound,
Felix
yeah.
Cash.
I was like, sound, what way? And he says, I think be super middleweight. And I was a welterweight 3 weeks before. I was like, yeah, whatever, grand. No bother. No, I went. I'm Eddie Hyland. You know Eddie. Eddie was my coach, and Eddie went online as Team GB profile, and he obviously hadn't updated in a few years. He had him down to his 5'8", so he had me sparring a couple of lads that were about 5'8", 5'9". We got over there. He was 6'3".
Oh. I remember when I had my first professional fight. So fighting on the Collins undercard. We only got on the fight on the Tuesday, right? So next of all, who are you fighting? Oh, you're fighting Craig Doherty, Scotland. All right. Next of all, one of the lads says to me, what's the story with your fight? I said, like, he's unbeaten. This is your debut. He says, he's unbeaten. He's had 4 fights. He had 3 wins and a draw. All right. So next of all, so I never looked at records on it. So next of all, so like, Carruth was on the bill. Paul Griffin was on the bill. Mark Winters was on the bill. Pascal Collins was on the bill. Jim Webb was on the bill. So looking at all they're all fighting fellas with 15 fights, 3 wins, 4 wins. You know what I
mean?
Yeah. Aidan McGee was on the bill. He's fighting a fella with more losses than wins. And my fella is undefeated. You know what I mean?
Your head does go.
Why is that? Yeah. Then I'm saying to myself, I'm from Dublin. I'm having my pro debut. Imagine getting beaten by someone from England, from Scotland.
Yeah.
In Dublin. Like, the shame of it. So I bantered him. I knocked him out. I knocked him down the 4th round and then just bashed him. You know? And but I mean, I was worried.
Oh, you would be.
I was worried because I was saying, why am I getting an unbeaten fighter?
Yeah.
Pro debut.
My pro debut, I walked. Well, I remember I was fighting a lad, and again, I wasn't barely a boxer, and I was fucking matched, and it was waiting all weeks coming up to nothing. On the Tuesday or the Wednesday, I got matched with this lad. He had 7 wins, 2 losses, and I'm shaking. I was going, oh jeez, and I love to fight in the road, no problem, grand. But boxing, I knew I was always saying I was not a boxer, but I tried, like, you know, I was working hard and all that. I remember saying it because Tommy was my man. Tommy was like, I hadn't got a manager, but Tommy was like my manager, me cut man, everything. And I was like, Tommy, why am I fighting this lad? And he's like, you'd be grand. I said, Tommy, he goes, you're going to win, you're going to look good win. I says, Tommy's already won 7 fights. I said, I barely win a fight. He goes, you won't, you'd be grand. So I was like, all right, grand. I was petrified. I was. I got to the stadium, walked in, big Sean Turner standing there. You know, I knew Sean from growing up. And I was, come here. So he goes, what's the story? Who matched your fight? And I said, hey, your man Frank Stacey. Boy, he goes, Jay, you shouldn't be fighting a lad that's 7 fucking wins and 2 losses. He says, you're only a novice. I was like, good man. I said, I don't feel bad enough as it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got in, I stopped him in the 2nd round or something. But he was like, it was picked right, but his record was padded. But I was, he wasn't English either or Scottish. He was, I don't even know where he was from. He was foreign, like, you know what I mean? But
I mean, like, you know, you look at their 7-2 record, and then you look at who was 7 wins were against.
That, yeah. I mean, I didn't understand any. I didn't understand any of that at the time. I was just,
yeah. My fellow was they were building him. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
but no British lad at 4 was coming to Ireland to lose either.
No, you know what I mean?
They're not like.
And a fella out of my gym then fought him a few years later. A fella called Danny Juma. Now Danny Juma he came in here in a boat or something like that. Like before I turned pro. Because when I was winning my intermediates, he's at the stadium and all that, and he was a pro at that time. You know, we used to spar with Collins and all that. And he fought him years after me. He said, Jim, I fought you. He says, I was talking to him, he said, you in the same gym as Jim Rock? And then he said, yeah. So I think Danny bet him. Danny fought Ray Close in Dublin. Yeah. Oh no, in Mill Street.
Mill Street,
yeah. And he fought everyone. He fought McRanelli and all that. Do you know what I mean? Just fighting. He ended up a journeyman. But he just says that, your man Craig Doherty says to him, he says, Danny to me was physically very strong, you know, muscles on his muscles. And he just says, your man Doherty says, he said, he never fought anyone like you for strength. He said, you wouldn't stop. He said, you were the same at the 4th round as you were the last 10 seconds of the last round.
The makings of the best pros.
You know?
The makings of the best pros. It is. So you think someone that just is there all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you can be technically the best in the world, but if you just have that dog and that engine that you just don't stop and you're technically sound,
Yeah.
I think you'll go very far in the game.
I will. Like, definitely, like loads of the fellas I fought, like, they were better boxers than me. You know what I mean? Though my boxing skills was okay, because I'd been an amateur boxer from the age of 6 to 20. So I had the fundamentals. But when I went up the pro game and got my fitness, you know what I mean, and then worked on my punches. You know what I mean? My jab was great. Like, my jab was just opened up all the doors. You know what I mean? Because I was just relentless with it. Just in their face all night. You know what I mean? But the pro game just suited me down to the ground.
The talking about the pro game back then, we just said about how different the kind it is and being dogged and things like that. What would, comparing the pro game then to now, what would your opinions be in it? Would you think the standard now is as good as back then?
See, obviously the fighters are fighters. I mean, I think fighters have more skill now than they did years ago. Because I think they train different. I'd watch my daughter train and doing a warm up and all that. They do things like I wouldn't have done. We done just jumping jacks and
the usual,
you know, just the basic stuff, but done it very well and done it repetition, and done it so often. You know what I mean? Like running. Like I ran 6 days a week, 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, and then I'd be in the gym between 1.5, 3. Every day I took off 7 pound, roughly every single day in my training session. You know what I mean? I think the most I ever took off was 9.75 pound. You know, that was my most that I ever took off. You know, our gym in Belfast would open up they'd open the gym at 11 and they'd put 3 or 4 superstars on full blast. We wouldn't come until 1 o'clock and they'd stay on while we were there. So the place was just so warm. Now, the whole idea of it was that it was like high altitude training.
Yeah.
So when you went up there at first, you'd be knackered. You couldn't get your breath. You know, because all the oxygen was taken out of the air. You know, so you train in that environment. And then when you go, and they say for every round we do up there is the same as 2.5 rounds in an open air arena. So when we go to the open air arena, we go, breathe so
Breathing
easy.
was easy, yeah.
So you didn't get tired.
Your heart rate didn't go up as much.
Oh, like, you know, and that was the way it was, you know. But obviously with the superstars, you sweated. You know what I mean? And when you finish training after your 2 or 2.5 hours, you would still sweat. Like, I'd go in and have a shower.
You'd still be sweating when you come out.
And you'd still be sweating.
Yeah.
The sweat would just be
it's like being in a sauna, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very
you know
similar,
what I mean?
yeah. Crazy.
But it was great. It was great times now. Like, you know.
When you think about that we use mimicked altitude training. Now there's people, I don't know if my whole career trained in altitude chamber.
I've never been altitude trained in my life. You know
there you go. That's what I owned an altitude chamber in Bray. I did, and I trained in that 6-7 days a week when I was as a pro.
Yeah.
And I found that my engine never gave up. I just could go all day long. I never really got tired because I was constantly training in that thing.
Were in
the
great
capacity
shape, you know?
was always
it
was expanding the lung capacity all the time. Yeah. But it's mad to think that you've done that years ago in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the same result. You
for
know
the same
what I mean?
result, like, because that was the old school way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how all Ray Close, Cristando Spaniard, that's how they all trained. They all trained that way, you know?
Mad to think like that. Coming to the end of your career, 2009, was it hard to walk away, or because you're not like, you know, you look at a lot of old ex-pros and they all go out on a loss, or they go out on a couple of losses, or they have a loss, they get a win, and they come back and they have another loss, and they go, look, you had a string of wins, and then it was just time to call it up. Or
I had 2003, I fought Takaloo, got beat. In the October of that year, 2003, John Breen is putting on a show in Belfast. So loads of the young lads are on it in the gym. And I said to him, John, will you get me on the bill? He said, Jim, I couldn't pay it. He said, like, it's only a small show. He said, the money's not there to pay you. He says, you know what I mean? He says, like,
of course, yeah.
I said, okay, with the money, John. I said, I just want to fight. Just give me a fight. All right then. Right then, we get you a fight. So he got me a fellow called Alan Jones. So I go out in either the first or second round. Boom, put him down. then give another few clatters. Thought he should have got a second count. He didn't. But anyway, won the first 5 rounds, and there was a count in one of them, and he won the last 3 rounds, and he got the fight. Right, so he got the fight, and everyone was saying,
What's going on there? Like,
and it was a Belfast referee. You know what I mean? And I went mad, so I sent it to the referee and all that. And then I remember I had Mel Crystal rang me then. He said, "Jim, did you threaten the referee or something like that?" You know? I said, "Well, listen," I said, referees, I says, can break people's careers.
Yeah, 100%.
I says, and they're not accountable to anyone. I says, and there's loads of robberies. I said, like you see them in England all the time and all. There's robberies all the time. I said, but it's wrong. I said, and they should be accountable to somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But I know I didn't speak to that fella for years. You know what I mean? And like he was another fella I wanted to kill him as well. At the time, you know what I mean? And I know he done a podcast, and the fellas who done the podcast rang me and they says, "Jimmy says, like we done a podcast, and we asked the referee, like, did he ever get threatened?" And he said, "Oh yeah," he says, "I got threatened." He says, by Jim Rock. And he said, "So like, you know, is that?" I said, "Yeah, that's true, yeah." I says, "You know," I says, "and rightfully so." I said, like, he gave me a bad decision. I said, like, I said, we're ever about getting a bad decision if you go to England. I said, you always want to get a bad decision
in your hometown.
I says, so he says, all right, so can I put it out? I says, like, I was going to edit it out of it that you threatened them, because he said you threatened them, and because you could potentially say no, you didn't, and you could.
Of course,
I said, I did threaten them. I says, and I don't care whether you put it in your podcast. I said, because that's the way I felt at the time. I said, that's the way I am. You know what I mean?
100%,
I said, that's the way I felt.
Yeah, 100%.
I says, but anyway, we're grand now, you know.
Yeah.
But I still say Rummy. But anyway, so that was 2 losses in that year. And they were my last losses. Then I had about another 9 fights and I won them all.
Yeah.
And one of them was against him again.
You rematched him, yeah.
We fought him in Dublin for the night me and Bernard Dunn fought for the IBC world titles.
Yeah.
So I fought him over 12 rounds. Now, he thought going into the fight that because I'd beaten him for the 5 rounds, let's say, and then he came on strong for the last 3, he thought, this is a 12-round fight. Like, I'll get him
in the latter rounds.
Apart. So we went out, 12-round fight again. Boom. I win about the first 6 rounds. 7th round, he hits me a good shot. And then he comes in and he throws loads of digs. And he won the round. You know what I mean? But I just sucked it all up and duck and dive and boom, took the shots. I'm betting for the rest of it. Because he'd been going at a pace, and then he upped the pace so much, his body wasn't able for it. You know what? I just took, and then I bet him for the rest of it. So like, and that got me, like, it was only an IBC, but it was an IBC world title, and to me, like, I was delighted to get that world title. Course, yeah. You know,
belts are belts. Like, at the end of the day, when you retire, it's nice to have something to show for your career. I always said that too. I always said to my lads, don't want to skip your Celtics and your Irishes. I said, just pick something up, because there's too many top level lads that have gone pro and end up with nothing. They end up with nothing, and you're going, like, you don't have a hand to show for it. Yeah, like I have the 7 belts at home, and they may not be worth, like, some people might say, oh, they're not good titles or that. And I always say to them, and what titles did you win? Exactly. Well, I didn't win any. I would have shut up then. You know what I mean? My 7's better than your none. You know what I mean? And look at 4 Irish titles. There's a lot, like, my dream was to get my dream was to win a pro fight, and when I got that, I said, right, my dream was to get a title. When I won the Celtic, I said, the Irish title, imagine getting an Irish title. And I never got one. You know what I mean? You never got an Irish title, did you not? No, I fell short. I'll give you one of my belts. I gave one of my belts away. I think it was my last fight. I gave my belt to my trainer, to John Breen. I gave it to John Breen. I said, there you go, John. And then what happened was, Crow Park were having some sort of museum, and Brian Peters rang me and he says to me, Jim, he says, Crow Park want to put your belts
in the thing. And I said, "Your Irish belts." You know what I mean? I said, "Well, fair enough." I said, "Well, look, I've only 3 of them." I says, "Because I gave one to John. I don't. I'll put one in, a new one in." You know, I said, "Well, fair enough." So they had them down there for about, I don't know, went down 6 weeks or something like that. And then I got a phone call one day. "Do you want to go in and collect your belts?" I said, "Yeah, no bother." So I went in. Well, yeah, your 4 belts. Yeah, thanks. 4 belts back.
So you got this
all right,
extra belt.
All right, Brian. I said, "Brian, I collected that belt. So grand. Did you get my belt?" I said, "Brian, they're in the cabinet. It says Jim Rock's belts." You know what I mean? He says, "Yeah." I says, "No, when I went in, it said Jim Rock's belts, light heavyweight, light middle, super middle, and light heavyweight." I said, "It said they're my belts." I said, "So I have them now." I said, "So they're mine. So thanks for the belt. Here he is." Right, okay. Simple as, you know what I mean? And that's
Brilliant.
the sort of relationship we have like that. You know what I mean?
Brilliant, yeah, brilliant.
And I have to say, like, none of my titles, like Brian Peters,
Yeah,
involved in all of them. Like, he's a great fella.
yeah,
Great fella for Irish boxing. Great manager to have. You know, sometimes you'd have little rows here and there, but great fella.
Yeah.
Terrific. And look what he's doing now.
I spoke to you before about Brian, and it's good to give him a mention because what he's doing for boxing and Irish boxing still, like with Katie, and what he's done for Katie is like outstanding. And I know you speak very highly of him, so it's good that he gets a mention because a lot of managers don't get mentions.
No,
and you only
don't.
hear bad about other managers. You'll only hear when they're bad. You'll never hear about the good that they do. So it is good to hear.
Oh, it is
positive about manager.
I like them all. I boxed for, like I said, I boxed for Frank Warren. I boxed for Barry Hearn for a while. You know what I mean? I had a couple of fights with Barry Hearn and then Brian Peters. But I mean, like, I've no bad words to say about any of them. Yeah, because I understand business is business.
Yeah. 100%.
And if you get beaten, it doesn't matter if you were winning or they decided to rob you. The fact of the matter is, it's a loss on your record.
And that's it.
So they get rid of you.
A quick question as well, because I've always wondered about it as well. Where did the name Pink Panther come from?
So, my manager at the time, Mike Callahan. So, we were up at his house. We'd had 2 fights. So, my first and second fight, I fought in white shorts, and I got them off Eamon McGee. They were the O'Neill's ones, and I think they were his Irish International ones, and he gave me them. And then we're having our first fight under Barry Hearn in the Ulster Hall, and Mike says, "Well, we're going to get his gear." So Eamon, Eamon, green, white, and orange. And he says to me, "What colour do you want?" I says, "I love pink." I said, laughing. He said, "No, seriously." I said, "No, I love pink." I said, "I love pink." You know what I mean? I said, "Pink." He said, "Seriously?" I said, "Yeah." So, "Well, I'll get you." He said, "Well, pink, right? Okay. Well, we call you the Pink Panther."
And that was it.
Simple as. You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
And I remember there a few years ago, my sister set me up on a Twitter page. Now, I never used it because I don't know how to. But, you know, you get someone follows you, someone.
Yeah.
Henry Mancini follows you. Henry Mancini is the Pink Panther. Like, he wrote
really?
it.
Really?
Yeah, he's the Henry Mancini.
I didn't know that.
Because he obviously saw, because my sister set me up as sort of at the Pink Panther tree or something. There's never been any tweets or anything.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I don't know how to Twitter to tweet or whatever it is.
It wouldn't be great that myself.
But Henry Mancini follows you. You know what I mean? So
you went worldwide, so the name did.
Huh?
The name went worldwide.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like, but it was sort of a gimmick type thing as well, because I remember I'd be fighting on Sky Sports, like, and they'd be saying, "That'll be tough now getting in here fighting in pink shorts."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you always hear that.
I hope he's able to fight now. You know what I mean? Like, pink shorts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mike Callahan again, like, always in, like, he said, "Look, we market you," he says, as a gay boxer. You know what I mean? I said, "No." He said, "No." He said, "I don't think there's been a gay." I said, "I don't give a fuck." I said, like, I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I said, "People know that I'm not gay." I said, "So forget about that." I said, "I don't mind any other shit that you do." I said, "I'd be gay ball for it." I said, "Don't even attempt to suggest that like that." I said, "First of all, people won't believe it."
Yeah.
I says, just in case 1 or 2 did, I said, "No." I said, "You'd never live it down." I says, "Not that I've had against it, but it's not me."
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, imagine, it's like, you know, it's stick with you. Like, it's bad enough you were fighting in pink.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was in Belfast, so my wife, now, I wasn't married to her then, but she had a few shops in Belfast. One of them was about 3 doors up from Barney Eastwood's gym, and the other one was facing it. There were cafes and things. So one day I went over to the bakery, and her ma was there, and her ma says, "Oh, she's up getting her hair done over there. Hair traffic, it was called." So I go upstairs, but stylist is doing her hair, you know what I mean? And I went over and I said, "Bro, whatever I said to her."
Yeah,
Didn't have mobile phones then. It's probably saying, "What time do I see you tonight?" or something.
yeah,
Like
of course.
that. Off I go. And so your man said to her, "The hairdresser's gay as Christmas." You know what I mean? So he says to her, "How do you know him?" You know? So she goes, "Oh, that's my boyfriend." You know? He goes, "No, he's gay." And she goes, "He's not gay. Like he said, no, he said, like, the Pink Panther." He says, "He works in the Pink." He says, "And I saw him in Thompson's Garage." He says, the Thompson's Garage is a famous sort of nightclub in Belfast that I worked in. But you worked there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But once a month, they had a gay night. But of course, you had to work there as well. But I never wore the dicky boys, just wear a sweatshirt, you know what I mean? But he obviously came one day, saw me there, and I don't know, but anyway, saw me there, and then seen the Pink Panther, and thought they put 2 and 2 together, got 22. So and it was gas. Now we came to my wedding and all then later on, like, and gas fella, like we used to go up there, and sometimes you were getting your hair done. I started using them then, and he's a senior stylist, so he doesn't wash hair up like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when I'd get my hair done, he'd bring me over the bait, wash me, and he'd be washing my hair, and he'd be saying, "I'm gonna turn you one of these days." And I'd say to him, "Go way out of that." I says, you know, he's funny, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's at my wedding and all. He just scream, but like it just goes to show you that wearing the pink and at the time you had the highlights in your hair and you looked well.
Yeah,
and
100%.
wearing nice clothes. You could very easily be.
Yeah, you could be the first impressions.
Yeah, you know. So a bit of crack though.
Before we finish, Jim, I have a few quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
Toughest opponent?
Toughest opponent was when I topped the bill in America the first time. Very, very tough man. No, he wasn't the best boxer, but just tough as nails. I think he cut me about 4 or 5 times all with his head, my head. But once he drew blood, it just seemed to bring out an animal in him. We just stood toe to toe. It was in an arena called the Centrum in Boston, and there was police. Let's say they were doing security. Let's say all around the outside of it. But when the fight was over, they were all at ringside. They all just came down because it was such a
good scrap, proper
he was
scrap.
the toughest, I think, you know what I mean? And but yet he wasn't the best.
Yeah,
he was
the
toughest.
And the hardest puncher?
I don't know. On paper, they say that NZ Bingham was the hardest puncher, but obviously Takaloo was the one who put me down. Although I'd taken his digs all night, and I have to say they didn't bother me at all. So I don't know.
We leave it. We'll leave that one out for the discussion.
Yeah, well, probably NZ Bingham on paper is the hardest puncher.
But he didn't bother you.
No.
The best atmosphere you ever fought in?
Obviously in Dublin. So either the Point. Like I fought in it with the Point, I fought in the O2, and I fought in the Three Arena.
Was there any night that stood out to you that the place was just electric?
Maybe the Stadium or something, one of the Irish title fights or something like that, because you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And your proudest moment in your career boxing?
Probably winning that world title, even though it's only a small version of the world title. But you know, it was a world title nonetheless, and it's an accomplishment in itself. And because your man had got the decision over me 2 years earlier, so that was, you know. And I remember that night distinctly, me dagger in the ring after it, and he was proud as punch. Yeah. You know what I mean? And things like that sort of stand out.
No, definitely, yeah, me, 100%. And one regret, if any?
One regret, maybe I just didn't move my head a little bit when Takaloo threw that right hand. If I had moved it just a little bit more, he wouldn't hit me with it. You know, I mean, I've no regrets. I loved my boxing career, and it changed my life for me. Yeah. And I mean, I just, like, I don't know where I'd be today.
If it wasn't for boxing.
If it wasn't for pro boxing.
That's an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah.
And then last one, your career in one word.
Just class.
There you go. Class. Yeah, well, I'd agree with you on that. Absolute pleasure, Jim. Thank you very much.
No bother.
Really appreciate it.
Good man. No bother.
Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in.